Board. All right, guys, welcome. We'll get started here. And if anyone joins late, we'll try to fill them in. So this is kind of a special edition of our weekly forecast discussion because now today, this is our first time that we've got students from Missouri and students from Rutgers. I think we're supposed to have at least a couple here today. Hopefully they've joined us. And so, yeah, so for today's agenda, for anyone who didn't miss it, it's kind of on our screen. Michael and I put this together. So what we thought is we're going to open this up here in a second to any kind of points of confusion, clarifying questions, whatever that kind of came up since this is our first week doing this. And Michael and I already added a few things that we wanted to ask you guys. So we'll go through that in a second. And then for the remainder of the meeting, I don't know exactly how much time we'll have, so we'll just kind of play it by ear, whether that's half an hour or a little bit more or less. And just a reminder, we have an hour today. We'll kind of start to go through our sort of more traditional forecast discussion. And I think Michael is going to kick us off. That's where I'm going to turn the meeting to Michael. Michael is going to walk through his forecast process kind of in a methodical way so that everyone can kind of see the different components of the forecast, the actual numbers, the formula, the strategy, the maps that we create and all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to try to open it up to at least one other industry expert to do their discussion, and then hopefully get some of the pods, the pod leaders or communication leaders from the pods to present their forecast. And again, if we don't get into that a lot today, we'll definitely get into it the next time we meet, which is going to be officially in 2 weeks from today. We'll have the meeting every week. We'll have our week forecast discussion every week on Friday, but the expectation in terms of the pod leaders and the students is to be with us every other week. All right, before I kind of I'm going to go through this agenda here, or I'm going to go through each of the line items. Does anyone want to add anything to today's agenda that we missed? No?
No takers.
Okay. All right. Well, if anyone thinks of anything, just yell. All right, so let me quickly go through this list, and then I'm going to, again, open it up to other questions and concerns and stuff. Let's see, what do we have here? Did everyone on the Missouri side get to create a team name, register on the forecast contest UI? I know at least one group did, the team Duratios or something like that.
Woo, yes.
And there should be three, no, am I saying there? Yeah, 3 groups on the Missouri side. Okay.
So we have one that made a team name, but not an account. What group are you in? IBU1, okay. What about IBU2? Is there anyone in here? Okay. So what did 2 have? Wait, you said you had an account? You did, but you just don't have a name?
Yeah. Now it's my name.
Okay.
Yeah, for MU2, I just put it under my name, and I don't know how to change it to make it like a team name.
That's no problem. I'm sorry, I'm not sure your name.
Lauren Savoy.
Lauren, sorry, Lauren.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you remind me after this, I'm going to make a note, but I can change that for you. If you want to change it. I mean, if you want to go by Team Lauren, that's cool too. Whatever your team decides, I'm happy with. Okay. Cool. So I'm glad, yeah, and I'm glad you were able to create a name. So, and what about the third group? Did everyone create one?
I created one as a whole, which is the Direcos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and there should be one more, right? I think we have 4 teams altogether. 1 from Rutgers and 3 from Missouri.
Yes. And which one's yours?
MU1 is called Clayton Lieberman right now, but we'll get that changed to something cooler.
Okay. The MU1 is Clayton. And
okay.
They're gonna change that to something cool.
Okay, cool. And again, whatever name you guys want, go for it. Doesn't matter. I just want to make sure everyone was going to be in, because again, especially going forward, starting next week, we just want to make sure that your forecasts are registered, right? because at the end of this, the winner gets $10,000 and we want to make sure, no, I'm just kidding about that part. But,
Wait, what?
but we do want everyone to submit their forecast so that we can help and provide feedback and stuff like that. Okay. Everyone should have gotten an email from Maxar so that they could access like the Dynacast and the model web page and stuff like that. It kind of looks like, here, I'll pull up an example. If you did not get an email, please let me know, maybe through Sarah or Dr. Lupo after the class, and we'll figure out what's going on and stuff like that. But if you have gotten it, make sure you kind of log in and start playing around with it, because this is really a nice bonus feature here. This is the kind of stuff that typically you only get access to when you work in the industry, and Maxar is kind enough to give you guys access to this now, and I think it's going to be really helpful for the contest. Okay, any questions there?
Did you all get signed up, or did you get the email?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think everybody got that, so I think we're good on that end.
Okay, good. Let's see. Yeah, pod leaders and stuff. I know I kind of gave you guys a lot and said basically, meet everyone, find a meeting time and a place and all that kind of stuff. I guess this is for Matt and Dave and anyone else, but any problems thus far? Any suggestions for improvements as we go into the next cycle here?
I was able to meet with 2 of the folks in my pod, so I'm getting there. But yeah, just trying to coordinate schedules and things like that seems a little challenging, so we'll get through it.
Okay, and Dave?
Yeah, we're in good shape. I don't think we don't have a time yet. We're meeting. I'm not sure. We'll talk about that over the next few weeks, but we'll be able to email and everyone's seeing that. And we have a group chat, and we've tossed around some stuff on the group chat, and that's been pretty useful. I think everyone's schedule's obviously pretty challenging, and it always feels like there's a little bit of a tight deadline with having the forecast due by Tuesday midday. So for us industry guys, like that Monday and Tuesday morning can be kind of busy. So it's a little bit challenging maybe to meet up, during the day, but we'll see. We'll keep working on that and talking about ways we can communicate. So far, so good though.
Okay, sounds good. And we'll just, obviously we'll check in again in 2 weeks. And if something else something significant comes up before then, just email and we can share, especially if you have an idea for improvement or something, we could share it with the other pod leaders. I can tell you on my end, because I'm a pod leader for the team Rutgers, which also didn't, they're sort of a week behind, but they're going to get their forecast submitted for the next cycle. But we're actually, because I also teach a class at Rutgers on Wednesday, so we kind of double up, and that's also when we have our sort of pod meeting. So obviously it's Wednesday, so basically what we're doing there is just more strategic. Like I'm working with them in terms of ideas and stuff, and feedback from, it's going to be like feedback from the last forecast, and then ideas and strategy for the next forecast cycle, i.e., hey, you think we should go 50-50 EC and CFS? Well, why? And that kind of thing. But ultimately, I leave it to them to, ultimately, I leave it to them, the forecast leaders, the forecast point people, to make sure that the forecast gets submitted on Tuesday. So that's how we're doing it. Okay. For the folks who were, intending to submit a forecast by Tuesday at 12 p.m., did anyone run into any problems? We're going to go through that again today, but did anyone run into any major problems that they want to share?
Group 3 was good. What about groups 1 and 2? Good. I guess everybody was good on that end.
Yeah, we were fine for that for group 2.
Okay. There were 1 or 2 outlier forecasts, as I recall, and we'll take I'm trying to think. We'll take a look at that in a second, and just because I just want to make sure that the numbers that are that were submitted were what you intended, as opposed to maybe like some sort of mix-up or something like that. So we'll take a look at that in a second. Is everyone getting the MailChimp email? Michael's the point person on this. He sends it typically on Mondays, Monday afternoon or so. Sometimes I know this can go to spam or some of these weird Gmail folders. If you're not getting that, again, you don't have to shout right now, but I'd ask, please let Sarah or Dr. Lupo know so that they can get that information to myself and Michael, and we'll see if we can work that out for you. And by the way, the Monday email, it's a weekly email that just provides some color on the contest. For example, if we a lot of times in the past we'll have like special guest speakers like Matt Rogers or something, and we'll just announce it in the email, and it just gives people some helpful information. So again, if you're not getting a MailChimp email on Mondays, please let Sarah or Dr. Lupo know. Any questions there? Okay. I'm going to come back to this one here in a second, but before I do, as I mentioned, in a few minutes here, after we're done with this, we are going to kind of go into our forecast discussion. Michael's going to walk you through the whole thing. But, were there any, I know this is new, and I know this is challenging in a couple different ways because you're forecasting for like the 16 to 28 period. I'm guessing for most of you, you haven't forecast for the 16 and 20. You're also forecasting for CDDs, cooling degree days, which is a little bit weird and unusual, and all this kind of stuff. So just in general, were there any kinds of points of confusion, things that you'd like us to clarify during the context of this call?
So one thing personally for me was the sigma. I wasn't quite sure how to calculate that. I know that it's a standard deviation, which I obviously know the formula for, but I kind of didn't really know what to do on that.
Good one. No, that's a good one. Yeah, that is confusing. Okay, well, we'll definitely, Michael, that'll be a good one for you when you kind of get into your forecast, for you to kind of talk around. That'll be perfect. Anything else come to mind?
On Maxar, we couldn't get a lot of the products to like load anywhere close to 16 to 20 days. So I guess we were just a little confused on if we're supposed to just kind of look at which way they're trending or if it actually has output that far out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good one too. Output, I don't know, model output, and forecasts, whatever, for 16 and 20. So again, Michael, this will be a good one for you in a second. I'll just quickly suggest that, yeah, they do have some stuff. It's sometimes a little hidden, or a little harder to find. For some of the stuff, you have to go under climate, and for some of the stuff, you have to go under info reports. So it's a little bit tricky to find, but maybe again, when Michael goes through his forecast process here, I'll let Michael kind of demonstrate some of the products here. And I'll also mention too that, or remind, I guess, in the tools, tips and tricks, Michael did this too. Michael created some really nice videos here. They're pretty short, and a couple of them deal with Maxar specifically, intro to Maxar, intro to Dynacast, which is a tool within the website. And you'll find some helpful guidance there too. So in other words, if it's 2 days from now and you forget or whatever, just come over to here, and I think you'll find a lot of information you need. Does that sound okay?
Sounds perfect. Anyone else have any questions? Y'all feel pretty confident?
Okay. Well, if anything else comes up, let me know. And before we get, I know we're going to switch gears here in a second to the forecast discussion. How many folks or groups are prepared to communicate their forecasts today? We won't make you go first. We're going to make Michael definitely go first. Maybe Matt goes second. But who wants to try to communicate their forecasts?
Do you want to do it?
Do we have at least one group?
Group 3 will do it.
Okay, I'm glad we have at least one group who's going to do it. All right, great. So we'll make sure we have time and everything. All right. So, oh, let me show, before I hand it over, Michael, let's go to this first problem here with a couple of these outliers. Let me pull them up on my screen and then let me ask. So I'm going to go to the forecast board from this week. So on Tuesday. So I noticed you can sort this. So I'm going to sort it by lowest to highest. And we had actually Amanda, I think might be with team Rutgers, if I'm right. If I'm wrong, please raise your hand. And I don't think Amanda's here. But actually in David Krishna, he might also be with team Rutgers. Let me ask, any of these two folks here from Missouri?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so then it's my group that has the hiccup. Let's call it that. I have to be careful. No, so I'll work on that with my team. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was, forecasting CDDs and not maybe HDDs or something like that. But okay, sounds like you guys are in good shape. So I think, Michael, if you're good with, I'm going to hand the screen over to you. And then again, just I would say, and I'll remind you if you forget, but these are a couple of the questions that came up. So when you're kind of going through your forecast, or you could do this either before or after or during, but let's just try to cover the a little bit about the Sigma. And
I have one more question.
yeah.
Did you have a question,
Yeah.
Andy?
Can you go through how to find the 10 and 30 year averages?
Yeah. Let me help with that one because that's a quickie. There's a couple things you can do, but what we do now is on the website, on the UI. So if you were forecasting for, like this 9/14, let's say it was Tuesday morning, we post the information, a lot of that information on the website. So I'm going to sort by name just to make it easier. So this is the stuff that we automatically provide. We provide all of these 5 to 30 year averages. So you have 5, 10, 15, 20, 30. We post that. That's yours to use as, to help or inform in your forecast process. You can use it, you can ignore it. It's just there, right? We also provide the CFS, a little bit lower down here. We also provide the EC. So these are, model data points that we just make available. That we get from Maxar. We also actually industry number one is actually Maxar's forecast. And then more to your question, here are the official 10 and 30 year. Again, that should be there. We actually, all this information, as you might imagine, of course, we don't have the EC and the CFS until that day. So, we don't post the ECMWF. Sometimes I say EC for short, sorry. But we don't have those two models until that day, right? Or around that day. So you're not going to see it before, say, Tuesday morning. But the Maxar 30 and 10 year, I do think we now post a couple days early because, of course, the 30 and 10 year normals aren't going to change, except when we update those normals. So those will be available if you submit your forecast 2 days early or something, like on a Monday or Sunday, you should be able to find the Maxar normals. In fact, I think they post today. So today we should post for the next week. And then we also post a few other things, just since we're talking about this. We also make available, it's not a human forecast, the MGO analog. And I'll leave that for another discussion in terms of exactly what that is, or if we have time today, but the MGO analog forecast. And we also make available a persistence, a number of these persistence inputs. And that persistence is basically just saying if the last 5 days, persist 5 days was, 5 CDDs above normal, then basically that's what we're going to show, something like that for the 16 to 20 day forecast. Again, you don't have to use it as part of your forecast process. It's there. Some people find it helpful, some people don't, that kind of thing. And the last thing we also provide is trend, which is it's what it sounds like. It's like a 30-year trend. It's just a simple linear trend that was generated through either Excel or Python using a linear regression. So what you'll find is in the summer, it tends to be hotter than the, like it is today, actually, than the 30-year normal. Does that address your question?
Yeah.
Okay. I should say too, just since we're talking about this and we want to be thorough, I think this is the spreadsheet. Yeah. We also, Michael, in the MailChimp email that goes out each week, we also provide additional data. Again, this is not for everybody. I mean, not everyone has to use it, but some of this data that you see in these forecast notes, this cheat sheet we call it. Again, you should be able to click on this. It should be available. I may have to grant you access. I can't remember if it's completely public, but again, it should be in the MailChimp. And there's some helpful analytics in here, or, you know, just statistics. Some of it's repetitive, like a 30-year average here should match the 30-year average for the same forecast window in the UI. The one I would say argue, or not argue, just suggest additional important data point that might be useful to some of you guys is that we provide each, we provide CDDs or HDDs here for each of the 50 years. So that might be helpful in terms of, utilizing that in your forecast process. Other than that, there's going to be some data that's going to be provided in the Maxar website, and I'll let Michael kind of demonstrate that here in a second. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, someone on chat. Let's just see what that was. Okay. All right, just some helpful information from Mark, just offering some help here. And it's great that Mark's here. Mark's an industry guest, and some of you might recognize him from the Weather Channel. Thank you, Mark. All right. Then I'm gonna, Michael, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I'll let you share and take it from here.
All right. Let's just get this going. Okay, can everyone see my screen okay?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna start off by answering a couple of these questions here. So I'll start out with the Maxar one since I've got that here. So I think if I heard correctly, one of the questions was where to find the 16 to 20 day forecast for the models, because obviously in the composites page, it only goes to 11 to 15. So what you want to do is you want to go to climate, and then down here you have ranges from days 1 to 5 all the way to 41 to 45. So you'll highlight the 16 to 20, and then you can switch between the CFS and the EC, and then you can change that to whatever you want to use. 500 millibar height departures. You can change your region, etc. So that should answer that question. If there's a follow-up, let me know. The other thing, the other question was about someone asked about the 10 and 30-year normals. If you want to have those before the week we have them out, you can actually change the date range in the Dynacast tool, and they'll give you the 10 and 30-year normals from Maxar. And you can change this to be, right now it's population cooling degree days. In a couple of weeks, which we'll hit on again, we're going to switch to HDDs, and then you'll just click this button. I believe the default is HDDs anyway. So, but just make sure that you're on cooling degree days if you decide to check any of this information here. And again, if there's any follow-up questions to this, please let me know. As for Sigma, it's a bit of the way I like to look at it. The way I do mine anyway, I should say, is I take the 30-year Sigma or spread which is 6.6 this week, and start that as my starting Sigma. So average or normal confidence to me would be 6.6 or whatever the 30-year says for that particular week. And then I'll increase or decrease that. You can do it by percentages. I know Dr. Decker will, one of our, if I can find him in here, yeah, here. Dr. Decker will increase or decrease his by half, or so like 1.5 sigma, 0.75 sigmas, things like that. So he'll do it that way. You can kind of just decrease it. Maybe you're not feeling all that confident, maybe so you just bump it up to 8. Maybe you're feeling a little confident, but not like super, super confident. So you can just drop it to 6, like Dr. Roundy did. There's no set rule as to how you determine what your sigma is. It's really just a measure of how confident you are that your forecast will be, 21.4 plus minus 6.6, essentially, is how I like to think of it. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for explaining.
Yeah, no problem. That's what we're here for. All right, so now I will go through my forecast. I'm gonna do it a little slower, but I'll to kind of explain everything as best I can here. So if anyone has any,
Sorry, can I just jump in just real
go
quick
ahead.
before we get going? Just 2 quick things, and just starting with the standard deviation too, that a nice benchmark to start from is the 30-year normal. I always, kind of look at that with the 30-year normal benchmark here on spread. Where is it? It's might be below, but whatever that number is, yeah, like the 6.6 is a good starting point. So anything higher than that, you're kind of going, you have low confidence. You want to open up the spread. Anything, if you're going to go something smaller than the 6.6, then it's suggesting you have high confidence. So that's kind of a good benchmark to start from too, I think. And then Michael, I was just going to ask, could you also show them in terms of the 16 and 20? Can you show them the Maxar, their customized page, or their forecast page?
Oh, the info reports?
Yeah, because I
Okay,
think that can provide some context too.
Yeah, so Maxar provides these, I believe, daily, right, Dave?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so they provide these daily, giving a quick forecast reasoning, some risks. Apparently, this one models suggest higher risk to. Well, this one's for HDDs, so you have to be a little careful with that. I'm not sure if I can find. They have one for cooling degree days still. But point being that they give this and they have this available, and it can be a very useful tool to kind of either augment your own forecast or kind of get like a starting idea. As you can see, this particular pattern from the 2nd to the 6th is supposed to be quite warm over the majority of the country, with the exception of Florida, which just as an aside is a little bit more important to have Florida being cool, because it'll hit the cooling degree days a little bit more. For heating degree days, though, Florida doesn't really matter, but that's something to talk about down the line. Anything else you want me to include there, Dave, or is that?
Yeah, I would just say, there's no real cheating, right? I mean, we're all trying to learn here. So I would certainly suggest, just like you're going to lean on your pod leaders and stuff, try to see what, again, this is, we're fortunate to have you guys to have access to this. Soak it up, as much as you're interested in it, try to read it a couple days a week. It's there, like you have it, I think 5 days a week. I don't think they publish on the weekends, but it's a short read. If you want to know how they're incorporating, MJO, AO, NAO, CFS, EC, you kind of get a sneak peek into what they're saying and what they're sending to the client. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
All right. So like I said, I'm gonna go through this a little bit more in depth than you guys will normally have to just as like when you go through your forecast the first time. I think it's best to kind of explain everything down to the smallest detail as best you can. And then after that, you can kind of, you don't have to explain it in those minute details every single time, although repetition can be good, but without further ado, so you can see here my forecast was for 22.6 CDDs with an average or normal spread of 6.6. Going with my formula, I use 60% of a special 10-year and Euro blend. So what I do is I will take the 10-year, 70% of that, and blend it with the EC, if I could find it. Here it is, the EC, and 30% of that. Add those numbers together, and that gets me my starting value of 21.6. And then I will take a look at the CPC forecast, which I've got right here. As you can see, I'll just click on this so you guys can see a little better. A lot of warmth along the East Coast, which unfortunate for me. But overall, the country as a whole is warm, especially our main demand regions at this point in the year. The South, we have Georgia and Florida, 60 to 70%. And then, Texas through Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, all over 50% chance, 55% actually, of being above average. So kept that in mind when making this forecast, but you also have to keep in mind that we're not dealing with huge numbers at this point. So despite all that warmth, only increased my value by 1 HDD, and then took a look at the teleconnections, which I believe I have here, which at the time of looking at them didn't give me a clear signal. They seem to have changed a little bit since then. But when I looked at them, the teleconnections were all around neutral, so didn't see a clear signal there, so I didn't make any changes. But they're showing a little bit more coherent of a signal there, so I might get myself into some trouble. So that rounded me with my N value of 22.6. Here's the map that I created for this. Warmth along the East Coast, bigger demand regions like the South, as well as I believe that's the North Central region, or Midwest region. And then I left these as normal, just because I'm a little concerned that the warmth in at least the desert regions will kind of get, so based on the CPC map, I'm kind of thinking that there might be a little bit more of a chill here that might help override some of this warmth. So I kind of kept this as an even, so maybe a cooler north, warmer south kind of idea here. We'll see how that plays out. Any questions, complaints, comments, or concerns?
That was really in depth. I wish I would have done that whenever I was working with group 3.
Does anyone need Michael to clarify any points about the content or about his forecast, formula, map, anything like that?
Y'all seem to be good.
One thing I'll clarify a little bit about the CPC is there's no like set number system to this. You kind of have to eyeball it and give it your gut feeling as to what these numbers end up meaning. I could look at this, and I believe Dr. Decker and I both look at the CPC. He uses 100% CPC. And we can both come up with different interpretations of the map. There's nothing wrong with that. You guys can look at it and come up with a completely different interpretation than I come up with. Or if you want, you can just use Dr. Decker's number and say, this is the number that the CPC is giving. Either one of those works. All right, so if there's no other questions from my forecast, I'm going to hand it off to either Matt or Dave Darkangelo, whichever one of you wants to give your forecast.
Dave, you can do it. I'm multitasking a little bit, so it's good if you want to go ahead and give your forecast.
That's fine. So I'm a pod leader for group 3, and I think Sarah's on. And Sarah, you had wanted to share some comments. I don't necessarily want to steal their thunder. We talked about this forecast earlier in the week. Sarah, do you want to give this a go for a few minutes, or do you want me to? Because I'll largely steal your thunder if I take over here.
Oh, that's completely up to you. I feel comfortable explaining mine.
Yeah, go ahead and do that.
Right.
So one thing that group 3 did, we pretty much, we looked at every single National Weather Service office throughout the United States. And I actually have an Excel spreadsheet where I input all the data. And then one by one, calculated them all and got a mean. And that's how we came up with our mean, obviously. With the Sigma, kind of just threw that out there. You have any comments to say on that one, Andy? Because Andy's in my group.
I kind of got the same mean as her. I mainly used Maxar and CPC though.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at the same graph that Michael was looking at and saw the East Coast and the South Central Midwest were going to be above average, and then more on the Pacific side is going to be closer to normal. So I kind of looked at the 30-year average and the 10-year average and made a prediction based on that with the CPC. That's kind of what I did.
Yeah, and then we also looked at the hold on, I have notes here because I don't have my actual computer in front of me. I actually looked at the GFS and the ECWF models using the Maxar stuff, and kind of just looked to see what it was forecasting, and that also helped play a role in our forecast.
And which are you on here? Did you guys submit it on the board here?
Yes, we're the Direcos.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
hope I'm pronouncing that right. Yeah.
Where's that? Where am I missing it? I'm missing it. There you go. Okay, perfect. So tell me, I'm curious, and we're, as time goes by, we're going to try to ask more jerky questions. I like to, we're going to try to act like the jerky stakeholder who's, didn't get a good night's sleep and, is difficult to work with, just to kind of test you guys. But hopefully I won't be that today. But I'm curious, you said I looked at AccuWeather's monthly forecast comparison. Sarah, what do you find there? How did, and sorry if you said it already, but how did AccuWeather compare to your forecast?
So actually, it was in line with it. Honestly, it definitely showed how that looks to be normal in the mountain range. It looks to be warmer in the south and east as well, and above normal is around the Pacific.
So, what was the takeaway? What's the takeaway of seeing AccuWeather's forecast similar to yours? What was your thought on that?
Maybe one day I'll be working for them, and because I mean it was like totally in line. I was like, okay, this is really cool.
So and I guess that's like confidence. So that helped your confidence, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And that makes sense. That's where I was going with that. Sort of like the ensemble approach, which is kind of what you did a little bit. I want to ask you too a little bit more about that. Every NWS office, that's ambitious. But like, I think that's a legitimate approach here, a strategy. There's no cheating for the most part. We want you to learn. But like, creating like an ensemble, right? Like, doing a little exercise where, hey, our strategy was to get 5 different forecasts from the Weather Channel, from AccuWeather, from CWG, Match Group, or whatever. But like, and create an ensemble approach, right? I mean, gosh knows, like every major modeling group has gone in that direction, creating an ensemble. So I think that could absolutely be a strategy or part of a strategy, a statistical strategy in terms of creating a better forecast. So I'm glad you guys did that. Back to the 5-day forecast from every NWS office. So I'm sorry, you said that was the short, like the days 1 to 5, or?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, and so how do you incorporate? So we're forecasting 16 and 20. So how do you extrapolate that out from 1 to 5 to the 16 and 20?
So I looked at what their average is for each day, and like throughout the year and everything, and in years past, and I kind of calculated. Okay, well, if say for instance, Phoenix, Arizona, usually it's extremely hot in the afternoon hours. So we'll say that they had a high of like 119 degrees, but with 2 weeks out, we see that there's a shift in the MGO and it looks to be cooler in that area. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to factor that in. So then I came up with like, okay, it's going to be like, we'll say 100 degrees. And that's just pretty much how I did that. And I actually sent a picture over to Mr. David, which he definitely liked that. There was like, I think 170 total forecast, like how many lines in Excel and everything. It took me a while to do that.
That's yeah, it's really interesting. I'm still it's almost like almost like a forecast persistence or something like using the 5-day and where you are and then kind of extrapolating that out from there.
Hey,
So-
Sarah, this is Dave. Sarah, share with Dave Margolin there, like the number you come up with was 21, right?
Yes. Well, was it 21? I thought we went with 23.2.
We did, but we ended up going with 23.2. But what you end up coming up with is something that ends up being close to the 10-year average. Dave, does that make sense to you? Like that exercise was just instructive for that she took that initiative on her own, but you end up with coming up with a number that ends up being close to the 10-year, not shockingly.
Yeah,
I think it's a long form way of kind of, and they took this initiative on their own, but to come up with this idea of like, how does the data fit together when you start averaging these stations? Because this is an interesting summation game. And I think that was maybe helpful for them. It's not like it's necessarily a strategy going forward, but you're seeing how these stations fit together. And when you see how you basically come up with, a number, a national number, a single.
Yeah, I was hoping I was going about that in the correct way, which, I mean, looking at our numbers compared to everybody else's, I think we did fairly good.
yeah, I really like how I guess, Sarah, to your last point, right? Ultimately, we'll have to see what the performance, right, in a couple of weeks, how that grades out, because sometimes it's good to be part of the pack, and sometimes it's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I love the creativity here, and really thinking out of the box a little bit. And I mean, that's a big part of what we're trying to do here, like test different ideas and approaches. And that's why we have all these, in the performance metrics, why we provide some of these metrics like persistence and whatever trend and 10-year and 30-year and different models and stuff like that. And we're always trying to add new ones because, we don't have the perfect forecast, right? And we don't have the perfect forecast strategy. Gosh knows that you can look at my forecast performance over the last couple of years. I definitely don't have the secret sauce. So I really like, testing it. And worst case scenario, you find after a few weeks or something, it's not working as well as you want or expect, and you learn something from it, and you try something new. So that's really cool.
Moving forward, is there anything that you all would like to suggest in us students making forecasts and stuff, so we don't spend hours upon hours of, calculating data like I did?
Well, that's an interesting question. Well,
Because I know there's probably a lot of students that are kind of confused, this is their first time.
Mhm.
And, being a PhD student, this isn't my first time, so I kind of know what to anticipate.
Well,
but-
Sarah, I think we had another guy last year who was doing something similar, but he wrote a program to do it.
Hey, I did
Kristen.
biometrics. I may be able to come up with a program
Well,
too.
or talk to Chris Stewart. He was the guy that had a program last year to do something similar. So maybe he'll lend you his program
I'll definitely reach out to him. That's
instead of
amazing that we have the
recreating
same-
the wheel.
Yeah, I love that we have the same idea though. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think maybe we could go around too to Dave and Matt and Michael and whoever else. But I mean, I'll just kick it off and just say that I'm glad you asked. I mean, it just makes me really, really happy that you're asking, honestly. But I think my mind goes in a couple different ways. So first of all, my mind goes that you guys don't have a lot of time, right, for to dedicate to this, right? This is not like this is everyone's thesis, and you have 50 hours a week to dedicate to this, right? So I definitely say that the most important, I think, in terms of the research aspect of what we're trying to do here within the contest, it's more about thinking, just like Sarah, what you've been doing and stuff, and coming up with creative ideas that we may or may not be able to test during the next next 8 weeks or whatever. But we want to learn, right, from this, and talk about different ideas and stuff and come up with different things that and I think will help with our research process. And so, and they could be, and we also want to go after low hanging fruit, right? Well, let's go after the simple stuff too. Like it might be just something like, you read somewhere online that the EC is the best forecast. So, you're going to go like 90% EC and 10% CFS, things like that. Like, I want you guys to come up with that and push us and test us and ask us, like, why not this forecast strategy, right? Or if you read something online that says, there's no skill in the 16 to 20, you might come up with something that says, I'm just going to go with a blend of the 30 year, or you might say, well, what about climate change? So I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like thinking about those kinds of things, even if it's more qualitative and not hard numbers, I think is fine and great. And we just want you to spend a little bit of time on that and throw those strategies out there, formulas out there, so that we can all discuss them and debate them somewhat. And then on the other side of things, kind of going a little bit to what Dr. Lupo just mentioned, absolutely. If you have a little bit more time and you're a little bit more ambitious, looking at more quantitative ways to combine these data points in terms of some smart ensemble approach, some multimodal approach, or maybe bias correcting. If you go to our research in our UI, if you go to the research page, I think is it Nat Johnson, who he's now at GFDL. So, he's had a few more experience than you guys, but he did some really interesting work about a year ago, looking at the bias on the GFS and looking at, or the CFS, similar, but what happens if you bias correct the CFS and then rerun the performance? And what he found was, wow, it was a lot better. And so I think there's some interesting things to look at there. With a little bit more work, it might be some Python coding, some Excel or something like that. But again, if you're ambitious, and you have a little, obviously also you need a little bit more time, taking a crack at some things like that, like a bias correction or a smart way to combine models or incorporate, things like that. We're all ears, and you could definitely talk to us about those things during the course of like the meeting like today, or offline to email, obviously your pod leaders, or, Michael or I, or all of us, and to banter, or kind of go back and forth a little bit on different ideas. So those are just a couple things that come to mind on my end. Matt or David, you guys have any thoughts in terms of things that they could look at?
Well, actually, it's 2:51, so we're gonna have to. I think. Do you all have a class after this? Yeah, I think some of us are gonna have to go now.
Oh, okay. I thought we had to the top of the hour. Okay, sorry about that. So
I apologize.
no, that's okay. So
you guys stick around for 10 minutes if you can. If you gotta go somewhere, go. But if you don't have anywhere to go, just stick around for 10 minutes. And Dave's got some good stuff to say. So
Thank you, Dr. Tony.
we'll let the students who need to leave leave. Sorry about that, the confusion there. And then are there still any students left there? It's a little hard.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Then maybe again I'll turn it over to Dave or Matt to offer their ideas.
Matt, do you have a comment?
No, it was interesting some of the angles they were taking and everything, but like I say, it's I think this was good talk here to go over where the baselines are. I mean, once you get your baselines established, then you can do some really good analysis on where you think the forecast is going to go. I feel bad that you had to retrench to do all that extra work there, but very creative, that's for sure. I wouldn't have thought of that. But yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in Dave Darkangelo's group. It sounds like he's a drill sergeant over there.
No, he was wonderful to work with, and he was like encouraging me. He's like, "Oh, okay, I like what you're doing here," and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna keep going."
For me, the 60 and 20 days is a very difficult forecast period, and one of the biggest things that what I do with customers is when you do extended range forecasts is to you give it your best shot, and you have you put the data together that seems to be the most credible and best route forward. But then it's helpful to communicate risk to your forecasts, and we show that a little bit in our in the sigma that we put in there. But identifying the risk of what can go wrong and everything is pretty helpful for clients as well. So you give it your best shot, but then what could be the what could go wrong portion of it, and I always think that's really important to relay to customers as well. But that's not really inherent in this product here, but it is something to give you you think about it when you make your forecasts, to kind of give you more of a balanced assessment at times, so you don't swing too hard to the fences.
Yeah, that's true, Matt. And one challenge in just showing a discrete number is not being able to share some of that uncertainty or some of that risk.
Yeah.
And then and I think it's important to know too, this is we're in a bit of a boring time of year. CDDs are waning. This will get a lot more fun in a few weeks when we start picking up HDDs. But I noticed too, we all have some differences with our forecasts, some differences with our approach, and yet we all come up with something that really is basically normal, like the 10-year normal, or basically a tad warmer than that. So there's not a lot of disagreement this week. So, we're all going to kind of, soar or sink together, to some extent. And I know we made this forecast Tuesday, and I think the students will start to get an appreciation for the fact that once you make your forecast, you're in a sense tracking it. And you if you're kind of following the weather, even a little bit passively, you can get a sense of how that may be turning out. And I know that we made this on Tuesday morning, and I was in the last 72 hours, I thought, boy, this thing could go wrong in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
So they'll appreciate the amount of self-doubt that comes into play with
my
a lot of these forecasts. We've been in a very warm pattern since about the second week in August, with only very small interruptions to that. And we're all, in a sense, kind of clustered around a pretty warm look here at the end of September, those first few days of October. But just in the last few days, we've seen quite a bit of cold pop up in the forecast now from the middle of next week into the early part of the week of the 27th, which isn't quite getting into our forecast period, but forecasts have become quite chilly now with several large troughs in the Midwest and Northeast. And so that's a little bit surprising, as much as and I think Michael mentioned this too, with regards to how much blocking we're starting to see over Greenland. The NAO is quite negative in the 6 to 10 day window now. And that's a pretty marked change from when we were thinking about this forecast. So I'm hoping we get the timing right, because there's some other things out there that make me pretty uncomfortable with kind of this period we're going into. And maybe we're getting into a window where we'll see sigmas need to expand a little as we go into October.
And move into HDD land too. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Start to pick those up. So yeah, it's definitely getting a little squirrely. We had some weird behavior in October last year as well. This is our second year in a La Nina based state, and October didn't behave like it was supposed to last year either. So it could be a pretty crazy few weeks ahead for us here.
Okay, great. Let's say, I know we just have 2 or 3 minutes left before we close it on our end. Do any of the students have any last questions or anything like that? Or Sarah?
No, sir. I think we're good.
Okay, so I think this is probably a pretty good place. So just a reminder, we are still forecasting CDDs. Some groups, this is a transition season, so some groups, just be careful, are starting to make the shift and stuff. But in our contest, we're forecasting CDDs through the end of for any forecast issued through the end of the month. So as long as you're issuing a forecast in September, it's CDDs. Once we move into October and we issue forecasts in October, we will switch to HDDs. And so just be aware of that. But all the guidance in the UI will update accordingly. It'll switch from CDDs to HDDs. And again, you're going to be meeting with your pod leaders and submitting forecasts weekly here for the next couple of months. And we will have this forecast discussion on Fridays at 3 p.m. and everyone's welcome to come. But again, sort of officially, just because I know everyone's got busy schedules, we're going to meet, every 2 weeks. So we'll meet again 2 weeks from today at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central. Okay, Michael, is there anything else on your end?
Just a quick tip for some of the students doing forecasts, something that I had to learn the hard way when I first started doing this. I used to use solely the teleconnections, and I got burned on that a whole bunch of times because I would end up looking at just the teleconnections and kind of losing sight of the bigger picture, the pattern overall as a whole, other things that might influence it, like your El Ninos, your La Ninas, and stuff like that. Could go on for 5 minutes about the list of things that affect the forecast, but so basically don't lose sight of the big picture. Some data points might look nice, like a really negative NAO, but you don't necessarily know that that's going to equate to cold every single time. So just keep that in mind when you're making your forecasts.
Well, thank you all so very much for dedicating your time
Yep.
to this and answering our questions.
All right.
Yep, thank you, everybody, and thanks,
Thank you.
Dave. We'll see you students on Monday.
See you
All
on
right.
Monday, Dr. Tony.
Good luck, everyone. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Too. Bye,
Bye.
guys.